Ladies and gentlemen, episode 4 of The Ultimate Fighter 31 was an absolute doozy. I dig my heels in the ground talking about the catchweight for Timur and Trevor Wells. Wonderboy Thompson makes an appearance, and we talk about why my coaching style is much different than my fighting style. And I break it all down with the boy Taylor Lewan. Bruce, hit him with the intro.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time! The Ultimate Fighter Season 31 reaction show, brought to you by CarShield, hosted by Michael Chandler.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the man, Bruce Buffer. This is the Ultimate Fighter Season 31 reaction show hosted by yours truly, Michael Chandler, and brought to you by CarShield. Thank you all so much for tuning in. First things first, we've been doing a weekly giveaway every single week. Conor, hit us with the winner of this week.
This week's winner is Alan Wynn.
Alan Wynn, congratulations. Yes, let's go. Hey, so for those of you who have not heard yet, I am giving away 12 of these. A signed copy of As a Man Thinketh with a bookmark of a signed Panini card. Inside of the book, we will be shipping those out after the last episode. Link is in the bio here on YouTube if you're watching, or in the show notes on audio, or on my Instagram link profile. So make sure you sign up and enter yourself into the giveaway. But I am excited to break down episode 4 with a extremely good friend of mine, a man who I've been to numerous fights with. He is a perennial Pro Bowler for the Tennessee Titans, and he is busting with the boys. Taylor Lewan, everybody.
What an intro. I'll clap for myself.
Let's go,
I'll clap for myself, dude. That's
Dude.
fucking awesome. What an intro.
Dude, thank you so much for being here, man. You and I have talked fights. We've talked fights with Dana, boys with Dana.
Dana, we are becoming friends, and I do enjoy every single bit of that.
You've been to slap fights, and you actually, before we even get into it, actually, one of the coolest things, and it's actually a little bit embarrassing because I pride myself on never being tired. I pride myself on having a ton of energy. I pride myself on going into the suck and coming out smelling like a rose.
Unscathed.
But I saw you in Vegas, week 2 of this freaking show that I was a coach on. And tell me exactly how you felt. How did you feel about the boy?
Well, yeah, obviously you said it, dude. You like going into the suck and being unscathed and like a bed of roses, man. My man does not take adversity. You just handle it. You handle adversity.
I pride myself on that.
Yeah. So we were doing a vlog for Bustin' with the Boys, and we're like, yo, Mike's in town. We were all trying to meet up or whatever. It was the first time I ever gambled with Dana. So like my nerves are high.
Yeah, that's right.
And I walk in the UFC headquarters like Dan Bilzerian. It's just a cool setup what you guys got going on in there. And I saw you, and I was like, man, I've never seen Mike like this in my life. You seemed so drained. And the thing you got so mad about, I was like, bro, you tired? You're like, I don't get tired.
I don't get tired.
I don't get tired.
That's what I was like,
brother,
I don't get tired.
You're exhausted right now. I know. And it just became a running joke the entire time about how tired you were the whole time.
It was really funny. I was like, hey, are you sick? No, man, I don't get sick. You tired? No, I don't get tired.
Yeah.
But I was legitimately, and I've said this now, this is episode 4, plus we had the pre-show. I honestly said this is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. I could go through a 12-week training camp, and I can handle the ups and downs, but man, having a camera on you at all times, having a microphone on you at all times, knowing that you're going to be on ESPN all summer, always on eggshells because Conor's around. I'm trying to get my guys into the best scenario possible. I cared so much more about these guys than I ever care about myself.
Right.
Leading into my own fights. So it was the boy was struggling.
When you were talking about struggling and how draining it was, what was like the number one factor of draining? Was it the cameras being on you all the time and feeling you always had to be on? Was it, hey, what's Conor going to say? Like, do I have to have a rebuttal because then I don't want him to say something that I look like a certain way? Was it the guys and them fighting? Like, there's a lot of variables that end up draining the tank a little bit.
A lot of variables. I think the biggest thing was, just every single day, every single moment that my eyes were awake, I was fully into this show.
Yeah.
Even if we get done with the fight night and all my guys won, okay, that's great. give them hugs and I love yous. And this is great, man. I'm excited for you guys. Okay. But now I got these other 4 guys that were fighting in a couple days, because week to week, it looks like these guys we've had all these weeks, but it's a 12-week show, but we only filmed it in four, almost 5 weeks.
So super condensed,
which meant, there was no days off. I think we were there for 32 days or something like that. And we were on for 29 or 30 of them, where I actually had a day off. There was 1 or 2 of them. So yeah, to say, plus just constantly figuring, there was all kinds of new stuff. We saw at the very end of this episode, some drama that's happened with Brad Katona that we'll get into later. But, there was just constant ups and downs with this whole thing and me feeling like I had to pour into these guys, which meant I was not pouring into myself whatsoever.
Right. Draining the tank for sure.
Draining the tank.
I will say of the episodes I've seen, I've missed 1 episode and that was last week's episode. Seems like you're around the boys a lot more than old Conor.
Yeah.
Seems like Conor was focused not so much pouring into the boys, more pouring into himself.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say it is coming across on ESPN that I am the coach who cares a little bit more. But, I will say, and I not necessarily stood up for Conor, but he was in the training sessions, but they were just, the stuff that they were working on was a little bit different than, even bringing in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is a certified 1-of-1 talent. He's a karate in and out kickboxing, like none of these guys can really get too much from a guy like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I'm not saying Wonderboy is a great coach and they have their academy out in, I believe it's Simpsonville, South Carolina, and they do a phenomenal job. And I'm sure those kids are crushing it. But to come into this, run 1 practice and showing all this stuff that's not exactly going to translate, they had the right ideas, but it was very much more about the shiny object than it was just the nuts and the bolts of getting the wins, And even you saw it at the very end of this episode. They were like, man, I wish I would have worked on my grappling more.
Yeah.
And that's all we really worked on. I have my striking coaches there, Jason Strout, Sean Soriano, Bader held some mitts, Bob Cook held some mitts. We were throwing mitts and guys were throwing hands every single practice, but the nuts and bolts of it was, hey, we have 10 minutes to go out there and win these grappling exchanges, the cage work, taking the center of the octagon. And obviously, it's showing. And obviously Conor was ticked that, there should have been a 3rd round in this last one. And we'll get into that fight. But as you saw too, Timur versus Trevor Wells, it had to get pushed off to the 2nd week
because of herpes.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
because of
some sort of mustard on the side of that lip,
which is unfortunate. For Trevor, and Trevor's a stud, man. Obviously, Timur's my guy. I was ranting and raving about Timur on ESPN on the show, but Trevor Wells was definitely a guy that I had my eye on because I knew Dan Henderson had told me that there was a guy on the team that he knew. He didn't tell me who it was because he wasn't really allowed to, but by deductive reasoning and doing a little research, I found out, it was Trevor Wells, and I had a soft spot in my heart for him. And obviously I ended up not being on his team, but these 2 dudes fought, and let's get into the fight. I think we're just gonna watch the highlights because obviously it was a 10-minute fight, but there was some really good highlights in there. I think, going back and watching it a second time, well, actually this would be the 3rd time that I've seen it. It was definitely close.
Yeah. When
I was there, obviously bias. We're all biased. Whether it's a football game, whether it's watching a fight, we're all biased. My bias definitely said that Timur ran away with it. It was definitely a close fight. Definitely close fight.
You're definitely the expert in the situation. I love sitting with you as you're breaking down everything that's going on because then I'm just kind of learning because I have no idea. I have no wrestling background, none of this. And so it's really cool to listen. It does seem like Timur ran away with it a little bit. And then as you're like, hey, you do a good job of being non-biased, of saying, hey, this guy, that's some good punches. Oh, that's bad defense by so-and-so or whatever, back and forth. And it's fun to watch with you.
Well, thank you. Well, it is a hard position too because, right after this, Trevor becomes not an enemy anymore, right? He's wearing the blue. He's on Conor's team, but he's not an quote unquote opposition anymore. Same thing with Jennerman after the first one, and then Mondo after the second one, and then last week was Aaron McKenzie. And then you start to, once these guys are no longer on the show, you also start to just break down the walls, and you're like, okay, well, hey, let me help mentor you through your black eye and your stitches and the pain that you're feeling that you have to be stuck here in this crappy scenario for the next 4 weeks. And I got to know these guys and peel back the layers too. So it was hard to, obviously I'm riding with my guys in red, but ultimately they were all just dudes chasing a dream.
Well, I'm glad you're there for them because it seemed like you were the only one that was there.
Let's roll the tape.
I'll talk to shit.
You just keep chirping at Conor, all right?
I will.
Let's roll the tape. So hey, the first round was definitely closer than I remember, to be honest with you. Man, Trevor hit him with a couple really good shots. Trevor was doing a good job of answering back, because what Timur did really well was throw, we're talking about spinning back kicks. That he threw an axe kick in there at one point in time. He threw a spinning back fist.
Yeah. His legs were flying around out there.
Timur did a really good job of mixing everything up, which takes you out of the rhythm, And obviously, Dana giving a ringing endorsement to Trevor. I hope Trevor still gets a contract with the UFC. He'll probably be on the finale eventually, whenever that finale is, August or September. But Timur also did a really good job. He looked like he started to fade later on in the first round, and I thought it was going to be more in the second round that he started to fade a little bit, but he came out and did really well.
Yeah, that second round when he had him on the ground the whole entire time, like 2.5, 3 minutes of having that type of control.
Strong.
Impressive to see. And you did, the whole catch weight thing seemed like it worked out in Timur's favor a little bit, but that's good coaching and that's good negotiating.
I had to stand up for my dude, because Timur is the bigger guy, and you definitely saw it more in the second round. When he got on top of Trevor, you could see it in the size of their bodies when they were on the ground. Timur, as a 35er, when I was grappling with him, when I was pushing him up against the cage, he was pushing me up against the wall. We were working on these specific things. Man, this dude because I'm also rolling with 135 or 155ers,
right?
Guys that are 20 pounds heavier than him, and he was stronger than some of those dudes.
Yeah, you get that muscle, that side muscle,
that dense Dagestani, just hard life showing up in the octagon, right? And then this right here was a little bit scary when Trevor gets that reversal. But Timur did a great job on the ground, landing a bunch of punches. They both got nice big cuts on their nose, on the bridge of their nose. And Conor obviously complaining about the third round. I will say, after going back, I could see how he's even more upset than I was there. I was like, okay, cool, we got another win. We're going to keep stacking up the wins.
Yeah, 4-0.
4-0.
4-0 for the boys.
We're 4-0 for the boys.
When you're sitting there watching that, how hard is it for you to stay unbiased?
Well, I wasn't really that unbiased there. I didn't care. It's always hard, when you see Trevor, like I'm sure Trevor watches this and I'm like, hey, Trevor's basic wrestling and basic striking. This is all he has. But look at Timur. Timur's got the wrestling. He's got a plethora of strikes and all these different things where I'm really hyping my guy up. It could very much look like Trevor's probably like thinking, man, he's kind of dogging on me right there. Yeah. But obviously when you're in there, whenever you're playing football, you're like, we got this, and this. Forget those guys. Forget the team. That's how it is, right?
Yeah, you throw shade at everybody, because even when you watch film on guys in the NFL, like it could be JJ Watt, and like this fucking, he's not that good. Look at it, that moves slow. Like you're kind of telling yourself whatever you have to tell yourself to make sure that hey, it's all going to work out. It's never personal unless it actually becomes personal. Yeah,
unless you do the old
the arrow,
Josh Norman.
the Josh Norman arrow. That was personal.
That was awesome.
But he faded.
He did.
We all fade at some point, brother.
Exactly.
We all fade at some point.
So yeah, it was obviously it's hard, and this happened to me a couple times. I go back and watch. I'm like, man, I wish they wouldn't have said that. They wish they wouldn't have pulled that. Maybe it hurt Jennerman's feelings or hurt this guy's feelings. Of course, it's because I feel for these guys, especially when they lose. Man, we talk about these exit interviews and the dudes are crying. I mean, my favorite line of the show so far, I think, when Mondo said, "I love this game so much, but sometimes it just don't love me back."
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter if it's football, if it's fighting, if it's any sport, if it's finances, if it's business, if it's relationships. Man, it's just it's tough to see someone's heart get broken and tears coming down. Dudes leaving in an ambulance last weekend. Aaron McKenzie leaving in an ambulance. Man, it's tough, but ultimately, man, this is why we love the show, and they did a really good job with the backstories of these guys. So obviously, starting with the fight, Conor, and they didn't show Conor coming in. I think this was definitely the fight night where Conor started getting a little chirpy, a little bit more. Hey, man, this is because, of course, if I was on the other side of it and I was now 0-4, and there is at least one other fight where it could have gone to a third round. I think the McKenzie versus Austin Hubbard fight was clear cut 2-0. Should have went to a decision after that second round for sure. But this one definitely could have been a little bit more up in the air. So you see Conor kind of coming into the cage and it's like, let's fight, boys. Let's go to a third fight.
Right.
Which, now looking back on it, kind of would have been cool to watch those guys fight again.
Let me ask you this. If you're sitting in that situation, the roles were reversed. You're sitting 0-4 right now. What are you doing? What are you saying to your guys?
Yeah.
You got to get them back up, because these guys, other guys that haven't fought yet, they're not fighting, but they're also seeing their team get their ass beat essentially. Yeah. And that's when doubt can creep in. Well, what if that happens to me? And then there's other guys who are like, I'm going to be the guy that turns this around. But there's different mindsets when it comes into it.
Yeah, it's tough because ultimately, you're watching, and because you got to remember too, it's an individual show.
Yeah.
Even the 155ers and the 135ers on the same team can win their fights and end up fighting each other. So you're on a team, but you're not really on a team. But ultimately, you're still, watching from the sidelines, feeling the electricity, feeling the mojo of the team, of the guys getting their hand raised or not.
Hell yeah.
But ultimately, if I was in that position, I'm sure I would have changed course a little bit. I would have put it on myself and said, okay, hey, this isn't about you guys losing. This is about me not showing up as a leader. You are not winning these fights because I have not shown up as a leader. I haven't made you believe that you can win. So that would have been my approach. And I probably would have got a little bit more animated, probably a little bit more. They would have really felt it, you know, and not in the sense where I'm like their, college football coach or their college wrestling coach where they're like, you're going to feel it right now.
Right.
Because I own you. I mean, they're on their own path. I'm on my own path, but I would have made them feel it more.
But you bring up a good point about everybody's on their own path. And like these guys come in, you shot this in 4 weeks. Like how much can you really teach these guys? Like sometimes the talent level is just that much different. Yeah,
for sure. Well, and even going back to, because I said this earlier, in the exit interview when he was, when Trevor Wells, who just lost this fight, was talking to Mondo Jennerman and Aaron McKenzie, he's like, man, I just wish I would have grappled a little bit more. Because obviously he lost this fight because of the grappling. Wish I would have grappled a little bit more. And that's my bread and butter from a coaching standpoint. Obviously you see the way I fight. I'm not a big grappler out there, but ultimately these guys were grappling every single day. We sparred maybe one day. And if it was very light. Hey guys, we're not against each other. We're not fighting each other. You don't need to go into these crazy hard sparring matches. You could get cut. You could get injured. Your dreams could be shattered right now. So my guys were on the wall every single day, half of the practice, and then on the ground another third of the practice, and then the other third maybe it was or another quarter, I guess you would say, was a little bit of striking, whether it be hitting the bags or hitting mitts. I always had at least one mitt coach there working on their boxing because that's the most fun thing to watch, or the most fun thing to do. I'm sure in football there's the most fun drill to do, and there's the one that you hate doing.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times it's the one that you hate doing that you need to do the most.
Right.
And making it fun, reminding these guys that no matter what, it's a 2-round fight. They cannot lose the grappling exchanges. They cannot lose the cage exchanges. And we saw that in the first 3 fights. These guys' ability to not get taken down or push them up against the cage and grind the clock down in order to get the 2-round win is what we had to do.
What does cage exchange mean? Because I know what grappling exchange a little bit, but cage exchange, what is that?
So up against the cage is where most of the takedowns happen. I thought when I was getting into mixed martial arts, because I was a college wrestler, I thought the wrestling, most of the takedowns were going to be done out in the middle of the cage. Not true at all. And I honestly thought that cage wrestling was going to be a lot easier than it actually was. I thought I was going to be able to take guys down off the cage a lot. But you could take a very average wrestler and try to take him down off the cage, and it's very hard. You got the cage he's leaning up against. He's able to scoot his body. He's able to scoot his body up to the cage where you can't get your hands in there, can't get your arms in there. It just sucks everything into a very small, confined, little bitty pressure cooker. And you're trying to navigate and negotiate. Plus, you're trying to keep your body high, trying to keep your head underneath his chin, but you also need to attack the legs. It's an acquired skill. So that was the biggest thing that we worked on in these 2-round fights.
Right.
And
it's so quick too. So like the gas tank, you need to blow it out every single fight.
Yes.
Like there's no like, hey, to feel this one out. You don't feel them out at all.
No,
like when you
there's
fight,
no feeling out.
It's terrifying to see as your friend.
As a friend. Yeah, that's my wife.
Yeah, there's no question. Poor Breezy.
Yeah, and
that's
Taylor,
tough.
Your wife was at my last fight. Going there and then it's like, oh, it's chaos. Absolutely,
chaos.
Right away, foot on the gas, and because ultimately too, you're fighting the heart and the spirit of a man too. So that is a technique. Punches, kicks, knees, elbows, and then the iron sharp as iron. Mano y mano, car crash in the middle of the cage. Who takes a backward step first? That's where I'm at. Now, obviously, if my fight style was my coaching style, I think we would have lost numerous of these first couple fights.
Right.
Or now 4 fights, and we could have been 2-2 by now. But it was more important for me to secure these guys' future, much more than it was for me to say, hey, this is the Chandler way I fight.
Yeah.
I understand the game a lot more than people understand that. A lot more than I show in my fights, if you will. So
yeah, we could break down your fights all the time. But with Timur, man, it just seemed like, do you see it in guys' eyes with the whole fighting thing? Because when you're watching as just a fam. When you first start digesting the UFC, you just look at two brutes going at it, and these guys are just fisticuffing, and then one dude catches another dude, or one dude pins another dude, and you're like, wow, that was a wild fight. And then as you start to learn more and more, like the mentality, how much the mentality goes into it, the technique, the fundamentals, the power, all that stuff. Like when you're looking at these guys, are you being able to see, like within the first hour, okay, this guy's got the attitude, this guy, not so much.
Yeah, and the good thing was, I think that's more of a, well, so here, having the veterans was a double-edged sword because now that we're seeing us be 4-0, and I've even seen people talk on the socials and stuff, hey man, this isn't even a competition. Of course the veterans are going to beat the prospects. And I would think that too, yeah. But ultimately too, you got to remember, you've seen these backstories. Last week, Austin Hubbard, up at 4 a.m. working at a house restoration company. That's his full-time job. Nate Jennerman was the UPS guy, but Cody Gibson, he's a high school PE teacher. You know, Roosevelt Roberts is still chasing the fight dream, but he's probably got a part-time job. These guys are still, since they leave the UFC, there's not a lot of money outside of the UFC in these smaller promotions. So half of them have full-time or at least part-time jobs. Yeah. So have they given up on the dream? We didn't know that.
Right.
I found out pretty quickly that my guys had a lot of fire left in them, and they felt like they were wronged by being cut from the UFC. Therefore, they deserve to be in the UFC. Therefore, we're seeing Team Chandler at 4-0 now. But it could have very well been like, man, this was just kind of a cool opportunity that my manager brought to me. Right. I'm going to go, coaching PE is my passion, or taking over this water restoration company for my father-in-law is actually my passion. Right. This was just something that I did because
that 15 minutes of fame. It was cool.
Yeah, exactly. You get 12 hours of fame on ESPN over this whole summer. If this was an opportunity that you couldn't pass up, compared to the prospects where it's like these guys are still full of piss and vinegar. They still think they deserve to be in the UFC. This is their opportunity to shine and get to the UFC, fight in front of Dana. So there was an interesting scenario there, but my guys were just so much more experienced. They have been weathered as well. They felt the pain of being released, and it either lit a fire under them, which we're seeing now. My guys have a fire so far, or it was going to be the 15 minutes of fame, and they were going to just another opportunity.
And you brought up a good point about having the pain and hurt of being cut. Like whenever Vrabel would come up in the middle of camp or the middle of OTAs, he would say, who here's been cut? And more than half the team raises their hand.
Crazy.
And he's like, these guys, like he would point to me, like, Taylor doesn't know what it's like to be cut. Like he doesn't understand that, at least up until this February. Yeah. But he would point at, so-and-so, how many times have you been cut? I'd be like 6 times. He goes, how bad does that hurt? And he'd be like, it's the worst pain in the entire world. But you would see guys who've been cut, lost an opportunity, gained an opportunity, and now are fighting harder than maybe some of these rookies that haven't felt the pain of, when you go play college football, you're there for 4 years, 4 to 5 years, based if you're redshirt or not, and you're going to be there. Yeah. With the NFL, it's like you could be done. 90 days.
So he puts you on the spot right there. Like, yeah, this is our superstar, Taylor Lewan. He doesn't know what it's like to be cut.
He's
like,
soft
dang,
as
bro.
Fuck.
Exactly.
Soft as fuck, this guy.
Yeah, well, which was kind of cool listening to my guys too, whether they were confident in their own abilities or just confident the fact that they were fighting one of these younger guys who hasn't really been to that level yet. And kind of just, it was cool, man. The swag that Team Chandler has, where these dudes were just like, dude, there ain't no way we're losing to these guys. These guys they're too young. They haven't felt that pain yet. Maybe 1 or 2 of them might shine, but for the most part, if you had to choose prospects versus veterans, the veterans have just been through it. Which adds layers. And I talk about it all the time, whether it be my podcast or even going on y'all's podcast. We talk about the failures and the pain and the setbacks and all these things. That is what turns you into the man that you're supposed to become. So my veterans have already gotten closer to the man that they are supposed to become, the athlete that they're supposed to become, the individual that they're supposed to become. So I'm very happy that I got the veterans, and it's obviously worked out extremely well. Now's a good time to thank our show sponsor, CarShield. We're all about who's the greatest here, and CarShield really goes to the mat for vehicle owners. They're the #1 most trusted auto service protection company in America, and they're here to help protect you from surprise car repair costs. Flexible month-to-month plans through CarShield can cover up to 5,000 parts of your car after they break down. When you're covered through CarShield, you'll always have someone in your corner at the repair shop. Visit carshield.com and check it out now. Now, back to the show. Man, Trevor Wells, even thinking about him, going back to going his story, I have in a note here. He's like, yeah, I'm broke as a joke. He talked about his
the gaslight on.
The gaslight on, right? We've all been there. And that's what that's what part of this show is too. Whether you are a prospect or whether you are one of these guys who has been cut, you don't have a contract with the UFC. The only place that you can really make a lot of money, and there's other organizations who can give you a good living, but broke is a joke, he says. So it's
crazy, but you don't realize what people are fighting for, because just because they're on TV doesn't mean they're making money like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, especially here too, because I looked at this too, and we've talked about this a couple of times over the past couple episodes. Is my guys, this really is their last shot as well, because if, say you go to this show and you don't show out and do well, now it's tough because you've been cut by the UFC, and then you also you didn't show out great on another UFC show. So I think it's a great, I keep saying it was the greatest second chance they ever could have had, but also a little bit of a scary way to get back into the UFC, because you got 1 or 2 fights, maybe you got 2 rounds to come out and show who you are, and maybe you either make it to the finals or hopefully get a contract. And like I said too, historically, there will be a Ultimate Fighter finale where the guys in the finals, who we will see over the next 9 weeks or so, fight. And then also some of these guys, like I guarantee Trevor Wells gets a fight. Guarantee he's going to fight somebody. We don't know if he's going to fight some other guy on the roster, some newcomer to the UFC, or another guy who was on the show. Maybe he fights somebody else who's on the show who also lost. Maybe him and Mondo fight, even though they were on the same team, Team McGregor. Who knows? But these guys will hopefully, most of these guys will get their opportunity.
It's interesting you say that, because this whole thing is to get a bid to be back in the UFC.
You get a contract.
So you're saying other guys still have that opportunity even though they lost.
Yes, and that was what is most important, right? And I think you did a phenomenal job, not just being a football player too. You created a brand for yourself, whether it was the Josh Norman thing, whether it was a little bit of chirping, whether it was obviously busting with the boys you started a couple of years ago, and that has exploded like crazy. But you did a good job of building a brand outside of just being the big guy wearing the 7-7 underneath a helmet, right? Playing football. And that's what I told these guys too. This is your opportunity. Yeah, maybe you don't win your fights. Maybe you don't win this show. Maybe you don't get the contract, but A, you'll hopefully get another shot. And B, you have the ability and the opportunity and the platform to capture the hearts and minds of people throughout this whole summer.
Yeah.
Everything you do is being documented. You have to think about your reputation, how you come across, what you're going to make people feel when you're watching these episodes on ESPN, so that it's a huge branding play for these guys as well, whether they win the fights or they don't win the fights, so it's a huge opportunity. Let's talk about this weight cut thing. So to lay the groundwork for people who haven't been watching, or maybe you just found us, I think it was episode 2 that they postponed the fight. And then now, do you have a clip of that? Let's play the clip, because obviously I knew this going into it. I knew this. I was like, I know Timur, however you want to say his name. It was very tough. Timur, we called him Tim. He's like, just call me Tim. I'm like, okay. Was the bigger fighter, bigger than Trevor. Trevor even said it himself. I'm one of the smallest guys here. Probably could make 125 possibly. So I knew we had to fight for this catch weight, and I proposed 145 just so they basically didn't have to cut weight at all. But once you go from 135 to 145, now it's a whole new weight class. So I was like, okay, Dana, let's do 144. Which is essentially,
it's a nice strategy.
Yeah. So let's see what they said here.
Kind of in between, the fights. Like, I don't know what weight class I'm hitting or how much weight I'm gonna have to cut this week, or where we're at with that.
The more you can make him suffer, the better.
The more you can make him suffer, the better. And I knew that.
Yeah.
What's better for you? Make it hard as possible for the other guy, right? And take every bit of advantage. The other guy's a bit bigger than you too, isn't he? Yeah. Big, So I think making the weight that we were supposed to make at the start, it's key to that.
Yeah. So they wanted to keep it at 135, which was just nuts. And then Conor, just scroll it up a little bit, and we'll talk about the conversation I had with him and his coach.
Interesting here that Conor's not in this conversation.
Well, Conor wasn't in this conversation, and obviously we'll show a clip here in a second that he wasn't in the second conversation. And this was what Trevor just said here was really tough too. And that's, I think, number one, the biggest misconception about this reality TV show was, hey, how much of this was scripted? How much of this was contrived? How much of this was, hey, show up here, do this. Conor's going to come in. Make sure you say something about his suit, or make sure you say something about his whiskey tastes like crap. There was none of that whatsoever. It was more a sports documentary than it was a reality show. And what Trevor just said right there too, he's like, I don't know what weight I'm fighting at. And this could have been 3 days before the fight, 2 days before the fight. We didn't find out exactly what weight they were going to fight at until, man, I feel like it was like 4 days before the fight. It could have been 144. It could have been, so right here, what does he say? He says, Conor just called, no negotiations.
5 pounds.
We're not doing 135.
I'm like, we're not doing 135.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I'm just the messenger, and I got my team there. We had already had these conversations.
What they're saying is
Your boy with the long hair looks frustrated.
Yeah, exactly.
weight division.
No, actually, and here I concede and say you're right. 145 is a different one, a different fight weight class. So 144.
Concerned about getting a deal. It wasn't our guy who had to, pull out of the fight. So I'm not trying to punish him.
That's a good point you bring up there too. It's like, hey, our guy didn't
The same amount.
do anything to not fight. Like this is your guys' situation. You guys essentially have all the leverage in the conversation.
Yeah, of course. It's like I'm not here.
you and Conor.
It's between me and Connor.
It's not a conversation. I'm just passing on the message.
I like the subtle look back over the shuttle too. Like,
Yeah,
where's he at?
I'm like,
then?
yeah, where is he at?
Yeah.
It's between me and Connor. Okay, you can cut it right there. Like, it is between me and Connor, but Connor's not here. But he's like, okay, 135, no negotiations, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, you can't do 145 because it's a whole new weight class. I'm like, you're right. Actually, I heard that from the commission that day. So, okay, we'll do 144. And he's like, well, that's not a negotiation. I'm like, well, we're not in a position to negotiate here.
Yeah,
This is
they're
my
not in the
guy.
position to negotiate.
Now, granted, too, what else was there? There was something else. Oh, I think I touched on this. Trevor Wells didn't do anything wrong. You know, like it wasn't like he, it was his fault, and it was something that the commission made this fight get pushed back. So of course I'm like, well, I don't want to punish Trevor, but I also have to stick up for my guy. And the hard part too is when I'm standing here, Conor's standing next to me, Dana's sitting here, and Timur was watching and listening to this conversation. Dana said it was a catch weight. And I'm like, okay, so now my guy knows he's getting a catch weight. I'm planting my feet in the ground right here, digging my heels in, and I'm getting this catch weight.
Yeah.
Because this is my dude. Number one, he heard you say it. And number two, it's just the right thing to do. So I had to stick up. But once again, it was between me and Conor wasn't there to negotiate. So.
Yeah. You do a good job of playing both sides of the fence too, talking about Trevor Wells and all that. Like, hey, you do a good job of saying like, you're not my guy right now, but I still love you and I still care about you.
I just imagine him and his career. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to screw him in this scenario, but I am trying to stick up for my guy. He's wearing red. I'm wearing red. My name is on the back of his jersey. Therefore, I stick up for this guy.
Right.
So ultimately, then we saw in the episode, Dana calls me and said, hey, listen, will you do 142? And I knew we were going to end up in that. It needed to be bigger than 140. That's all I cared about,
Well, if they'd have said 140, would you have said yeah?
No, I probably would have dug my heels in. I would have said, Dana, I'm not doing it, man, because that's only a 4-pound allowance, and these guys just made weight, and Timur is bigger than Trevor, But then the other thing too is, it was like pulling teeth trying to get information, because you got to remember, if you're on a reality TV show, there's the guys that I became friends with Cole. Cole was my guy. He's freaking 7 foot tall, and he can't give you inside information, but he can kind of at least help you make your decisions based upon this whole reality TV thing.
Yeah.
That we're like, what is this? Is this the UFC that makes this decision? Was it the commission? Is it this production company? Is it the executive producer? Who's making these decisions? So ultimately, all of them were just like, nope, not saying anything, because they can't say too much either, because their livelihood is on the line. If it got leaked that, one of the producers gives me some kind of information, hey, this is how it should go, or blah, 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 these guys can get in trouble, because they're worried about their job. So everyone's just like, plead the fifth. I can't say anything. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll talk to Dana.
Tell me, so if they were like, hey, sorry, it's 135. What was that? Is that the weight, original weight?
135. So it would have been 136 because they all get a 1 pound allowance, but still, yeah.
So if they're like, hey, no matter what, it's at 136, it is what it is. Timmy, if he goes, what does it look like to cut weight?
Yeah, it's
a bitch, right?
Yeah, it's tough, especially for him, because it's not a small 135.
Yeah.
So these guys, every weight cut, myself and at least 2 coaches went over to the house. These guys were wearing plastics and they're getting in the sauna.
Get the garbage bags, the tape and all that. Seen wrestlers do that in high school. I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah, sauna, sweatsuits, sauna suits, which is the plastics, and then sitting in hot baths as well. These guys had just made weight. At this point, it was, I guess, 6 days before. So it's hard. You balloon up no matter what, because you dehydrate yourself. So every little drip of water you drink stays with you. You could spend 2 full days trying to get rid of that water again, because your body just holds on to it. Once you've gone into the mode of dehydration, your body says, okay, well, I don't know if you're going to do that to me again, therefore I'm going to hold all this water.
Right.
And Timur, who's a big 135er, I knew he wasn't huge and he's a gamer. He would have been fine, but also I made the promise to him, like, I'm fighting for you. I'm going to figure this out. You're going to get a catch weight no matter what. And ultimately, that's where the waters get muddy too. If Dana was like, hey, dude, can't do it, 136, son of a, hey, or the producers were like, hey, can't do it, 136. The biggest thing, the only thing I cared about was Conor not getting his way. If it was Conor, and I could tell that Conor was influencing Dana, or Conor was influencing the producers, or Conor was influencing it at all, that's where I had to draw a line in the sand. And ultimately, when you start hearing from producers, commission, and Dana, you're like, okay, 142, we can do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but I just had to fight for him, you know?
And you guys can't get IVs, right?
No.
So that's, because usually if you're, hey, just get the weight down.
Yeah.
Go through the struggle, pop an IV in real quick, you're getting your weight back like that.
Yeah, as soon as that USADA situation came in, we can't do IVs. Anything more than 100 milliliters or something like that.
Even if it's just like a regular bag, just a salt water bag.
No, because I guess I don't know what the thought process behind it. I don't know if it's using it as a dilution of your body and all that kind of stuff. I think they were just like, nope, can't do it. You know, so it is unfortunate.
Keep it in black and white.
Yeah. Well, basically nothing. You just like, hey, we're going to err on the side of you doing nothing. You know, they put all kinds of stuff on the list. And then, so that was a big, you know, you guys saw me call Audie, who was Conor's manager, got his number from somebody, because that was the other thing too. When Conor isn't there, how do you get a hold of Conor?
You don't have his phone number?
I don't.
He didn't give you his phone number? Yeah, give him a call. Let him know.
I don't. But obviously getting to his management through the UFC, obviously talking to Dana about it, and then talking to all these guys, it was tough. And then obviously it's always tough too when you don't hear it from the horse's mouth either too. If it was me and Conor, we could have probably figured it out, but it's going through his coaches, and I'm like, okay, are you guys making this decision? Was it the UFC? Was it Conor?
Yeah.
And me, I'm just focused on my guys and just, you know,
keeping the important thing.
Pretty much, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we were doing there.
Man, what a stressful time. You were tired.
Stressful.
You were so tired.
I don't get tired unless I'm filming a reality TV show.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
Seems like it, man.
I poured myself into it.
Yeah. But that fight though, dude, like once they got on the ground, it seems like Timmy was just dominating everything about that. And you even said it when Wells was like, I wish I grappled a little bit more before.
Yeah, and that's where I thought, because everybody keeps asking me about my coaching style, and I still remain the conviction that it was more about the hearts and minds than it was the actual X's and O's. You had to get these guys to believe that I wasn't just here for my paycheck. I wasn't just here because it's my name on the jersey. I wasn't just here for my 15 minutes of fame, right? ESPN, it's a great opportunity, but I was here to coach these guys and usher these guys into the best scenario possible. But it was, that was the most important part, getting them to believe in themselves. But the second most important part was, hey, you got 2 rounds, cage work, ground control, ground defense are going to be the couple most important things. These fights are going to be won and lost there, unless you get caught. You know, obviously Roosevelt goes out there, knocks his guy out in 9 seconds, like the first round.
Just wild.
Anybody can get caught. This is fighting in 4-ounce gloves with a very, very little amount of protection. But ultimately, the grappling exchanges were going to be the most important thing. So I think that was what separated us.
Seems like Timmy had a good little jaw on him though too, because he got caught a couple of times in that first round.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was handling it.
He does. And that was one thing that I think leading up to that fight, he had been dropped before. And I don't know if it was his UFC fights or the fights prior, because as I've said too, we got a list of 20 something names that could be on the show, and we end up with the 16, and only 8 were on my team, obviously. So we did a ton of research, made a bunch of calls, emails, looking up everybody on social medias, looking up their highlights, looking up all this different stuff. And Timur had been hit and rocked a couple times too, you know, so that was definitely one thing, which we all do. I got dropped in my last fight. It's part of it. You know, as long
I've been knocked out twice with a helmet on. I can't imagine having no helmet on.
True.
Yeah.
So as long as you get up, you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was obviously he won, and the ground definitely shone through there. So did the same thing with Austin Hubbard. Same thing with the fight before that with Cody Gibson up against the cage, and then obviously he caught Mondo with the flying knee. But that's my bread and butter. Don't use it a lot in my fights, but had to get my guys in the best situation.
I know this is a reaction show, but if that's the second time you brought that up. Grappling, wrestling is your bread and butter, but you don't use it in your fights. Yeah. If I went into a game and I was like, man, I'm a great 2-handed puncher in my pass protection, but you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm going to do 1-handed punches this game, not use my bread and butter. Why not? Is it because of the thrill of the game? Like you like exciting fights or what?
No, I don't like exciting fights. I think if I had my choice, I think they would all be boring and easier but I think it's,
you're the one fighting. You have your choices, right?
Oh yeah, I guess I am in charge.
Yeah.
No.
This is your fight. You're allowed to do whatever you want.
I am in charge. But no, I think, yeah, man, I think I like to get the fight going on the feet. And then a lot of times I get stuck in that mode. I'm like, okay, we'll just keep on slugging it out. This is fun. I'm thinking I'm gonna knock you out eventually. I have never once in one of my fights not thought I was about to knock somebody out.
Really?
The whole time. So that's part of it too. What you can do a mistake that guys can make is get in that one track mind and look for the knockout. They call it chasing the knockout.
Yeah.
You know? So I think I've been
a victim of that a few times.
Victim to that by my own, like you said, it's not a victim like anybody else made me. It was like I fall victim to my own warrior fighter spirit.
Right.
But, ultimately I think, I took Poirier down. I took Ferguson down. So I'm, what was that? Three fights I didn't grapple at all. 2 fights I did. So we're in the right direction.
Right. You look forward to this Conor McGregor fight.
I do. Yeah.
And you take him to the ground. How do you think that would fare for Conor?
There's no doubt. I mean, I murder him on the ground, I think.
You think so?
I do think so. He's the thing about him too is he's very rangy in and out. He negotiates and navigates the distance very well. So that's why he hasn't been taken down a lot in his fights. So I think he does a good job of coming into the pocket, bouncing out of the pocket, hitting guys with follow-up shots or with, I guess, counter strikes, if you will. That's kind of his favorite thing, that pull left hand. Guy throws a right hand, he gets right out of the way and then hits you with that big left hand. He put Eddie Alvarez down with it, just everybody, the list goes on and on of guys that he's put down with it. So that would definitely be the easiest path to victory, but that's been the easiest path to victory in all of my fights. I just haven't shown it. So either way, it'll be the most electrifying first round we've ever seen.
Maybe it's time to show it.
Maybe I'll take Conor down. Maybe I'll take Conor down, but we'll see.
Yeah, dude, just take him down the first.
Maybe we'll just knock him down.
Just run at him and tackle him. I'm sure that'll work out great. Yeah.
Just call my shot.
Call your shot.
Going for the takedown.
I believe you said second round knockout.
Second round KO. Wear him down big time in the first, hit him with the big shots in the first, make him second guess himself, make him wonder why the heck he actually showed up.
Yeah.
And then finish him in the second. That's what I think happens.
And you said that to his face.
I said that to his face.
And then he said, you hear it's at 185. And then that little exchange happened.
Yeah, that's probably the best line that he had the whole show for sure.
The whole show.
You'll do what you're told.
But production, did you say anything after? Because it kind of seems like
of course I did. Of course I did. But it just made it look like I said nothing. But I don't remember.
Just sat there. Yeah, you did.
I don't
tap the
remember
finger
what
on
I
the
said.
chin.
I actually felt like I let you down there because I think what we had, we were playing cards over. We were playing a game night over at your house like a week before I left. And you're like, hey man, here's a couple chirps I would use.
Yeah.
Okay, if Conor says something like this, here's what you hit him with. I know you are, but what am I? You know,
you should hit him with the. What'd you say? 185? But yeah, so I heard you the first time. Stop repeating yourself.
Exactly.
Something basic, nice little jab.
So
at
when
him.
I watched that, I was like, oh man, it looks like I had no comeback. Taylor's gonna rip me a new one for that.
I just thought you. I mean, you see the no context video, and you're like, man. But that's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do.
It's tough for the boy.
Yeah, but you know what? People can talk all they want. At the end of the day, that octagon's gonna be closed, and so you and him.
Exactly.
God, I can't wait for that fight.
Good. So hopefully we get some fight announcements, fight news here soon. Everybody, I know you guys are waiting on pins and needles, and I know everybody is, thinking Conor's not going to come back, or he's got this going on, he's got that going on. Like, there's a lot of intrigue going on. Everybody is eager for results, eager for information.
Yeah,
there's stuff going on behind the scenes. We're going to figure this thing out. We will fight eventually.
It seems like there's a lot of stuff going on, especially this past weekend, or the stuff coming out this weekend about Conor, like allegations. Yeah. He's in the club. He's wiping that nose a lot. And I've obviously just seen a couple of videos. Like, how does that make you feel like about your guys' fight going into it?
Well, I mean, we're definitely, I mean, the thing about a fight camp is you don't need to be in camp 6 months from now. If we fight in December, like the speculation is everybody's saying, hey, T-Mobile got whatever reserved for December, sometime in December. That's 6 months from now. Do I think I would like to see Conor a little bit more focused? Yeah, probably, obviously. But also, we only need 2 months to train for a fight. You only need 8 weeks, 10 weeks to train for a fight. So I don't really look that much into it. Everybody's eager for information. Everybody's eager for an announcement, eager for some kind of path forward. Me the most, obviously, because my whole entire life feels like it's hanging on this right now, waiting for this. Is this fight, the fight is going to happen, but is it going to happen, November, December, September, October? When is it going to happen? We could get a call tomorrow. We might not have any information for another month. Who knows? So it's waiting on pins and needles, but also realizing that you can only really control what you can control. Focus on that. We're doing this. The Ultimate Fighter's awesome. I'm serving my family. I'm, getting after it in the gym. I'm in shape. I'm focused on the task at hand for me, which is me keeping on the right path and staying out of those kind of headlines. And here I am.
When you look at this show used to be on Spike TV, and now it's on ESPN. It's a little more buttoned up. You see the guys in the house, not really drinking, not really partying, kind of you've seen in past seasons. If you're in The Ultimate Fighter, are you even thinking about consuming alcohol at all?
Oh my gosh, no.
No, right?
I'd be so nervous that I would get a little bit, tipsy and say something stupid.
Yeah. Well, that and like the body recovering and all that, like
for sure.
You have to get ready to go.
That too. Yeah. I mean, because this whole thing was shot. It looks like it was, it's going to be aired over a 3-month period, but it was a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So, I think Conor drank the most so far on any of these episodes of the episode when he got his hair cut and he was dancing and doing all this other stuff.
Man,
and I think he posted an Instagram video that day, and everybody's like, "Oh, Conor had a night."
Yeah,
had himself
a night. Indeed, indeed. It's so funny becoming friends with you. The whole reason why I got into the UFC, Richie Incognito, shout out Richie Incognito.
Oh yeah.
He, when I first met Talon, like 10 days into knowing Talon, me, him, and Talon went to the first McGregor-Diaz fight.
Oh, that's right.
And I really wasn't watching UFC like that. And Richie's like, hey, you got to watch this guy, Conor McGregor. You got to watch this dude. This is the guy you got to look at the highlights. I literally became a fan of the UFC because of Conor McGregor.
Yep.
And now we've planted a flag in the ground. Drawn a line in the sand. Like I'm anti-Conor right now.
Yeah, me too.
Gotta be.
Me too, man. I'm definitely anti-Conor. That's the funny thing though too. I can take my ego out of this whole thing. I'm not necessarily anti-Conor. Do I want to beat the heck out of him? Do I want to absolutely demolish him? Did I want to beat him so badly on the show that I want to make him look bad as a coach and all that stuff? Of course, but ultimately, there's a million other guys like you who became a fan because of Conor. A million other people who felt what it felt like to be at one of these big fights, and it elevated the UFC, which has then in turn elevated my paychecks, elevated my platform, elevated all of us fighters have benefited from any superstar like Conor who has come in to the sport and got us all to a position where we can all make more money, make a better living, and become much more in the limelight than we ever would have been. So I'm not an anti-Conor guy, but whenever fight camp happens, I'm thinking about one thing, and that's separating him from consciousness.
Yeah.
He wakes up like, what just happened?
What a line, by the way. Separating him from consciousness.
You ain't got consciousness around me for very long. If you're we're good. We've been talking about this. We talked about this on the bus. We talked about this on the bus numerous times. That was the fight that I wanted, and the fight is going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
You definitely spoke it into existence.
Made it happen, man. I've visualized it. I've talked about it. I wasn't afraid to say it. The biggest thing, not just in fighting and cutting promos and all that kind of stuff. If you want something and you believe you deserve it, you believe you want it, you have to speak it into existence. Whether it is just amongst friends going out on a line and saying it, or saying it publicly, which is the most, I think, impactful way you can do it, because then it ties you to that, and then that's what becomes your focus. And it just elevates your consciousness toward that thing happening. Yeah. And you see more and more signs. Even right now, while everybody else is seeing signs of this fight being in jeopardy, or everybody else seeing the signs that Conor is doing what he's doing, all I see is signs that this fight is happening. It's going to happen by the end of this year. And your boy's going to get his hand raised, and then we got bigger and bigger fights after that.
Hell yeah, brother. That fires me the fuck up.
It's going to be good.
That fires me up.
Well, dude, thank you so much for this, man. I appreciate you, obviously, as a guy who's been to fights. You and I, who have talked about this fight, I don't know, no less than 225 times over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
It's been the topic of conversation numerous times. And then actually, I feel like you and I lived this a little bit since you and Will were there. We went to the Power Slap. We went to, while you guys were there in Vegas, and you actually saw me, and the boy was hurting.
Yeah, well, dude, it's very cool to see your journey. It's been very cool to see your journey, man. I'm stoked for you.
For sure. But thank you for joining, man. I appreciate it. You are an awesome dude. And also anybody out there, thank y'all for tuning in and subscribing. Make sure you check out Bussin' with the Boys. These guys are putting out fire content nonstop every day. I've been on the bus how many times? 4 times now at this point.
You're out there. You're probably our number one most reoccurring guest.
Yep. And I will continue. I've actually been on the bus twice right after a fight, and I don't think I've won yet.
No,
It's always a loss. You know,
it's always past.
It's always past. Yeah, no, it's not like a curse, but it's like, hey, you know, you or Will will reach out. It's like, hey, man, you want to get on the bus? I'm like, yeah, dude. Monday, I lost on Saturday. I licked my wounds on Sunday. I'm going on the bus. I'm confessing my sins. I'm putting it all out there right now. You know, I'm bleeding. I'm stuffed up. I probably sound like I got some sinus problems because I got a broken nose or whatever it might be. So thank you guys for giving me a huge platform. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much. And man, we'll episode 5 will be next week. We got the Beer Olympics coming up very soon, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow.
This comes out Wednesday, right?
This comes out Wednesday. So
it'll be 6 days from now.
6 days from now, the Beer Olympics. We got, give us a lineup of everybody who's going to be there, or at least a few people.
Yeah, I'll give you
comedians, athletes, entertainers.
Yeah. So you will be partnered with Russell Dickerson, your boy right there. You guys,
shout out Tough Reaction Show episode 1.
Yeah,
Russell Dickerson.
Stud. And they can absolutely put it down. Comedians, obviously, Burt Kreischer, Shane Gillis, Uncle Laser's going to be there.
Oh my gosh.
Football players, David Bakhtiari, left tackle for the Packers. Jordan Roos, Corey Levin, they will be partners. They play for the Tennessee Titans. We got George Kittle, DeForest Buckner. Like it's gonna be a time. Jelly Roll will be there.
Epic. We don't call it the Olympics for no reason.
This is
the Beer Olympics.
This is gonna be elite.
So everybody, obviously, like I said, subscribe to Bussin' with the Boys. Make sure you check out, if you're not already checking out the content, most likely you are. But those videos, that whole vlog, whatever y'all are going to do aside from for that event is going to be phenomenal. So,
it's going to be awesome, man.
But dude, well, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you all for your support as always. God bless. We'll see you at the top.